Welcome to the Commercial Edge podcast with me, Chris Webber. Come and enjoy a virtual coffee while I share my experience and ideas that could help you overcome difficult people at work. I share my thinking and insights so that you can find new ways to overcome challenges and gain a commercial edge and unleash the power of people. Welcome to this week's podcast episode. Some of you might know that I'm in the process of writing a book, and I've sent it to a few people to read and to add their comments and their thoughts. And one of the suggestions that came back was to add another topic. And the topic was, how do you deal with a boss who rejects change? And so I thought that was a really interesting topic. So it's definitely been included in the book, but also it's now going to be a podcast episode. So let's talk a bit about some examples of bosses who reject change, who become the barrier to organizations changing. I'm going to unpick a little bit about why they might resist that change, what's going on. I'm going to talk about their personal impact, because I do think this is a very personal topic to certain bosses and leaders. And then we'll share some advice on how I believe that you should frame change in order to avoid your boss becoming the barrier, the blockage in your change program. Let's talk about an example. There's loads and loads of examples that you can use to talk about people who resist change. And actually the topic came up because one of my friends said to me, it reminded me of a boss that he'd had previously. And that was something that he was thinking about when reading the book. There are loads and loads of examples, but one I really like is the story of Yahoo. Yahoo, back at the start of the internet, so back in the mid 1990s, I should say, was huge. They were really one of the pioneers of the internet, and they really dominated, one of the biggest organizations in the world. And there's a guy called Terry Semel who was the chief executive of Yahoo. Now, at that point, the internet was new. It was a collection of random pages, and there wasn't a lot of access to it. So we certainly didn't have mobile devices and smartphones. It was very much from a desktop computer. Laptops also were not as frequent as they are today. And therefore, the way he saw the internet is very different to how the internet might be perceived today. But I'm going to come back to that later, because I do think that's a really important consideration when it comes to this topic. His experience, his life was as a executive at Warner Brothers. His experience was media, TV, movies, production, print, all of that kind of stuff. And his vision and his understanding of what Yahoo would be and was delivering was the same. He saw Yahoo as a media company, and he wanted it to be the destination that people went to on the internet. So if you can imagine that you log into the internet, you log on, and your homepage is Yahoo. It's the Yahoo homepage. And there you can read emails, you can read magazine articles, you can see the weather. It becomes the center of how you consume the internet. And that was very similar to if you'd imagine a favorite radio station. So people would tune into their favorite radio station and they listen to the programs there. That's where they go on. Now, despite the fact that there are hundreds, thousands of different radio stations, people have a favorite. Same for magazines. Same for TV channels. People go directly to where they want to go to consume the content that they want to consume. That's how he saw the internet. That's how it was going to work. And so his whole focus was selling advertising on that Yahoo page, tailoring that advertising to the people who were there, and having click-through pages where you could go and read more, find more information, again, where people would find tailored adverts. And his business model was about selling advertising on Yahoo. And they were very, very successful. When the internet was small, they were very successful. What he didn't understand was how important search was going to be. And in fact, he was approached by Larry Page and Sergey Brin from Google to offer them, they wanted to offer him the opportunity to buy Google. This was in 1998. And they set a price of $1 million. Imagine, one of the biggest companies in the world today was for sale for only $1 million. But because he didn't understand the role of search, and because he didn't understand how that would connect to Yahoo, and his fear that actually it would draw consumers away from Yahoo pages, he was not interested. Huge mistake. And certainly one that came back to bite the organization. In fact, in 2017, Yahoo became almost obsolete on the internet and was sold off to Verizon for almost no money at all because they completely lost touch with the internet and with what it was becoming and how relevant it was going to be. So there's a wonderful example here of a leader resistant to change. And I like this example because the irony was they were at the cutting edge. So Yahoo were on the internet as one of the early founders of the internet. It wasn't that the internet came and made their business obsolete, which is a story similar like the blockbuster Netflix story. This is about the fact that they were already on the internet and still they missed out on the change and the evolution of the internet. And I think that's why it's very relevant, because there are businesses today looking at change, looking at AI, looking at other tools, and they themselves are strong performing organizations doing well in modern tech-based businesses, but may still be faced with this challenge of change. So let's explore why leaders resist change. What is it that causes them problems? If you think about how we present change, we present it as a gap, as a space, as a risk. So, we would come to the organization, come to the leadership and say, hey, we need to do this. It's a big change. It's different. It's new. It's exciting. And there's lots of reasons why we do that. And there's lots of reasons why that's interesting. But the way we present it, I don't think helps. We get frustrated because we think, well, they don't get it. They don't understand what it is, but this is urgent and the facts are clear. I've presented this to my boss. We've got to address this. We've got to move with the times. And it's that urgency. It's that hugeness of the change that I think becomes quite scary. We like to know where we are. We like to know and feel comfortable with where we are. And if you think about some of the arguments around climate change, I think they're very similar. We're asking businesses, we're asking organizations, we're asking governments to change so much stuff that it becomes overwhelming and daunting. It suddenly feels like a very, very complex, very, very expensive and difficult thing. And yet in our own lives, the changes that we make are relatively small changes and they add up to significant change over time. And I think that's a different way of framing change. And we'll come back and revisit this later, because the one thing that's important about change is that it's slow. One of the challenges that leaders use to resist change is, well, it's not that urgent. And they continue with the way things are because it isn't urgent. Change happens slowly. It's like a plant growing. One moment it's a sprout from the soil. Day after day after day, it grows very small. You can't even notice the changes. But if you revisit that a month later, you see so much significant change. And as a business, the change takes a long time to happen, to come to life. But the costs of change could be immediate. You could be immediately asking your boss, your leaders, to spend money, to do things differently right now. And that's going to affect today's performance, today's costs, today's issues. And what you're promising is uncertain. It's still in the future. It's still something that we haven't pictured yet. That's really hard to get your head around, especially if the business is working well. If you've got a business which is functioning well, you've got good profits, good margins, the team is operating well, and there is no urgency to change, it's much safer, it's much easier to stay the way things are. Why would I risk significant change right now? Because this is what's happening, and we're in the right place. And I think that's a big part of it. But I also wanted to dig into the personal impact of change for leaders. And I want to reflect on them. And this is a key message that I'll go back to again and again and again, that it's the people at the heart of things that we need to understand. Are leaders resisting change, trying to be difficult? Are they trying to become barriers? I don't think so. I think they're staying with a tried and trusted model. If you look at Terry Semel, he was a media exec, spent his whole career working in media, very successful. He was very skillful. He knew that. And so to tell him that his company was a media company, he felt comfortable with. He felt credible. If you're then going to tell him that he's a tech magnate, he's a business of technology, that's a very different thing. And what you could be saying to him is that your skills, your experiences are now irrelevant. Think about how hard that is to accept after building a reputation, building a career. It is way outside of a comfort zone. And when you're in a leadership position, you want to communicate confidence, you want to communicate skill, you want to communicate understanding. And so then when you are faced with something that is very uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar, it reduces your credibility, it challenges everything that you stand by as a leader. That's really hard to accept. And that's the fear. That's part of this personal impact that, what if my leadership team don't take me seriously because I know nothing about this industry? That's a huge challenge on your personal ego. And especially if you are a leader who has prided themselves on your knowledge. Certain leaders come in and take control because of their expertise. And I think this is very much where my friend was referencing. The example he was sharing was someone who was an expert, and there was a fear in change that expertise was being questioned, that level of capability was being questioned because of what needed to change or what was going to be changed felt like a really personal threat. I think there's another angle as well. I think the other angle is around things like the amount of effort that people have put in to achieve what they've achieved. For me, the parallel is like climbing a mountain. You get up in the dark, you put effort and energy in to get to the top of that mountain just in time to see the sunrise. You want to sit at the summit of that mountain. You want to open a flask of tea or a sandwich. You want to look across the view and enjoy all of your effort as you sit there sweating in the sunshine. There's a moment of pride there. If you're an exec and you've reached the top and you're a leader and you've reached a pinnacle of your career, that has taken you a lot of time and energy. When someone comes to you and says, we need to change, we need to do things differently, there's a fear that you have to start again. You're not at the top of the mountain. You can't just kick back, look at the view and enjoy your mug of tea. You have to actually start again, put your boots back on, lace them up and put in the effort. That's psychologically really difficult to do. And I think that is daunting as well. And so you're saying to someone, perhaps who's built an organization, start again, learn again. And it's no wonder that they say, no, we don't need to change. You're wrong. And they can go back to current performance, current insights and the way things are. And I actually don't think it's that surprising that when new leaders come into an organization, they often implement change. And the reason I think is that they want to put their own stamp on the business, but they're not held back by the history, by their experiences, by their own fears of change, by their own ego. They can just push forward with something that is new. Because change itself creates fear. We have a fear of, is it going to be successful? Is it going to fail? How much money is it going to cost? How much time is it going to cost? And what do we have to learn and relearn? The structural changes and investments that are going to have to be placed in there. And if we frame the need for change as massive, significant, and urgent, we're playing up all of those fears. We're highlighting how significant things are that need to change and how important it is to change. And that becomes a massive challenge for people personally, emotionally. It's little wonder that they want to resist. And there are so many reasons why they can. So how can you frame change? How can you put it in a way that stops people being afraid of it, being concerned about it? Well, if I look back on the Terry Semel scenario, I think he was right. He said Yahoo was a media company. That's what he wanted to do. Produce media, get people to be a destination on the internet. Now, it's gone through lots of evolution, but if you look at the internet today, I think he was right. It is a place to consume content. We go on, we watch videos, we read books, we connect to magazines, we watch movies, we listen to music. It's a media hub. It brings media directly into the palm of our hands. And if in fact you look at Google, YouTube, a big part of their business is one of the biggest creator spaces on the internet. It is all about media and creation and creativity. But also within the Google network, you have movies, podcasts, TV shows, Google Books, a whole range of things, which is all about media. Yahoo was kind of on the money there. What was missing was that when you've got billions and billions of internet pages, is an index. How do you find the one that you're looking for? That was what Google offered, just a way of indexing the internet. Well, it's not that difficult a concept to explain to a media guy. It's like a TV channel guide that helps you to find what it is you're looking for. Or it's an index at the back of a book or a magazine that helps you turn to the right page at the right time. That's all that Google offered at the start. And so there was no reason why they couldn't have said, well, look, it is a media destination. People will come to consume media, but they also want to find other things on the internet. And let's become that portal. Let's be their start, middle, and end point, exactly the same way that Google has. Google started with indexing. Now they offer media. Yahoo could have started with media and offered indexing. The key to this is to frame not what is different, but what is right and what will enhance the offer. So, we're in a great place as an organization is to start framing things, but we need to evolve. It's not about revolution, it's about evolution. And being confident enough to take on that change, to evolve that change, might mean some small changes now, but if we keep making those small changes, if we keep successful, then we can move things forward. You really need to support their ego. You cannot focus on proving them wrong. You can't go around trying to demonstrate to them, get them to accept that they were wrong and things do need to change. You're going to get into an existential crisis and fight over something that you probably can't win. Show how they are relevant. Show how their experiences are relevant. Experience of learning, building a business, inspiring people, whatever it might be. Show them how important they are and what they have done as part of the future. Tap into their experience as a leader to lead this evolution. They are the right people in the right time. And of course, you need to protect them from risks. They're going to worry about the things that are uncertain, and I don't blame them for that. Find ways to pilot, to create contingencies, make small investments to see how they go. There's a great example that I think demonstrates the importance of this. Amazon are one of the world's biggest retailers now. They buy and they sell products digitally. I don't think there's anybody who hasn't heard of Amazon. But Amazon Web Services, AWS, is one of the backbones of the internet. It is the tech infrastructure that so many other organizations and websites are built on because Amazon got it right. And the reason this came to light was not because someone decided at Amazon that they needed a strategy of becoming a tech organization and a tech provider. No, it came out of the fact that they had an internal problem, which was hosting their content. And they needed to build servers so that they became self-sufficient. So they started small. They ran some pilots. They expanded. They grew. They became more capable and more confident. Till today, it is one of their most important revenue streams. It is highly profitable for them. And it gives them so much freedom to run the rest of their business the way they want to because they're not reliant on third parties. That's an example of change which came slowly. I think if you'd sat in a boardroom, 10 years ago, Amazon, and said to them, we need to become this huge tech infrastructure, they'd have said no, outside our comfort zone, outside our area of expertise. But slow evolution, proving milestones, proving value to the current business and adding on important things shows that you can take people who are very unfamiliar with the models and make them into leaders globally. Hope this has been interesting. And to the friend of mine who recommended it as a topic, thank you, because it's been a great conversation. Think about the people that you are trying to influence who lead your organization. Are they barriers? And why are they barriers? What might you think about to help them worry less about what change is going to mean for them personally? Thanks for listening to the Commercial Edge podcast. I'll be back soon with another episode. Join me then when we delve into more difficult conversations. See you next time.